Welcome to today's webinar. We're delighted to welcome Tanya Steers to today's Fireside Chat. Tanya is principal at Hensman Street Elementary, which is a child-led, play-based education setting with students in playgroup, pre-kindy, pre-primary through to year 3, based here in Perth, Western Australia. And it's been going since 1977. So it's a very well-established elementary school. So welcome, Tanya, to today's chat. And I read your case study with great interest. So probably my first question to you would be, what was the real primary challenge that prompted you to go out and start having a look at systems that would support your teachers in the classroom?
Thanks, Kim. I suppose our biggest challenge was that being a very small school, we didn't have the infrastructure in place. So we relied heavily initially on paper when I first started 13 years ago through the old roll book system. And then the data was migrated into an Excel spreadsheet. And like with anything that is opened and closed several hundred times, we ended up with lots of data loss from our history and corrupt files, and it became quite frustrating for us. And we found it was quite limiting. So whilst that was great at storing student data as to where they live and anything more, so behavioural observations or parent history and things like that, we just couldn't store in one spreadsheet. So we ended up with lots of random spreadsheets, and the file got so big that it just decided to die. So we certainly started looking at different ways of housing that data, especially since the privacy laws have sort of recently changed and that data protection mode that we needed to be a school increased. So yeah, we looked around and we found Zunia.
So I suppose then the next question, particularly given your history with spreadsheets and using them, and yes, I agree, the opening and closing and the storing, obviously the loss of data is really quite critical here. So why did you choose Zunia in the first place? So what was it? Because obviously there's so many systems out there at the moment, so the world's your oyster, so to speak.
Yeah, initially we looked at lots of different systems. What we found was, being a micro school, so we only have just under 40 families here at the school, that a lot of the systems were designed for high school, and a whole pile of modules that we didn't need, and we don't do timetabling or exams and tests and those sorts of things. So in primary school things are a lot different. So we found that the cost outweighed what we were looking for, and being a small school, we didn't have huge amount of dollars that were behind us to be able to purchase systems with stuff in it that we didn't need. So we were really mindful of that. And we liked Zunia because it was completely cloud-based. So we don't have a server with multiple computers. Like, our school runs off 2 computers. And and that's the size. So, for us, being able to house it in the cloud and being compatible with the iPads that our teachers use was really beneficial. So that's sort of why we landed on Zunia. And what we liked about it is that because it's kind of been in the startup, things could be built around the little idiosyncrasies that small schools have, rather than being already like a product that was already in place for bigger schools and high schools and those pre-K to 12 schools, which we certainly weren't. So that's how we sort of fell on Zunia.
So how's it been received by your teachers, for example, Zunia?
Yeah, they've received it really well. They like the fact that there's just one place that they can open and find data on the children and be able to upload everything that they need to upload in one spot. And like we use a few different other programs that they do for like newsletter writing and things like that. And we find them quite clunky, whereas they've found Zunia really seamless and The help support has been fantastic in terms of if we have a problem, we just shoot through a quick email and we're either taught how to use it very quickly or the sort of solution is solved. What we find with some of the other programs we use is we can wait a week before a solution comes out or we even get a response back. And we just, teachers are busy beings, and with lots
Very
of
busy.
we want to make them, make it as seamless as possible for them to jump on board and, and get that approach really quickly. So they love it. They find it really simple and have found it simple to adapt to, which is quite nice because we have a varying range of ages with our staff team, and some are definitely more tech savvy than others. But
yes,
even
really?
that are less tech savvy have found it really user friendly and quite intuitive as to where you think you'd find something. You usually find it, whereas I know other programs we've sort of looked into in the past, you would sort of go down a rabbit warren to find something really quite simple. So we've found it, they've adapted to it well and embraced it, which is really lovely.
Which is huge, right? Because it is a significant change going from your spreadsheet history, right? Yep. And then learning a new system. It's great because they're using it on their iPad. So I suppose the next question that I would ask you is, how has Zunia helped the school in general? New system, you've come off spreadsheets, we've talked about the teachers. Are there other aspects that you've found useful here in terms of the administration, the student data, all that sort of thing?
Well, we at least know it's not corrupt, so that's always a big positive. What we find is that we only need to change information. So if someone moves house or changes phone numbers for work or things, we only need to update it once. Because we're, I suppose Perth at times is quite transient in its nature, and certainly our families can be. In terms of their jobs and working from home and then going back into the office. And so being able to change data once and not in 10 different locations means that it's always right there at your fingertips. So, if a child gets injured or we need to contact the parents because they've had a reaction to something, that, it's easy for staff to be able to do it then and there rather than having to come to the office, figure out which version of what spreadsheet is the right version to open. And often, certainly it saves, it saved time for everybody from a administration point of view, because we're all part-timers in the office. It's reduced the amount of time that we'd spend on that, which means we can actually spend it on doing other things that it takes to run a school. So it's been, I suppose, quite time beneficial for us. So the initial setup took a little bit of time, but now that all the data's in there and as we've got new students starting, it's really quite simple in terms of maintaining those operations. And what we found is it's really lovely to be able to store things like children's birth certificates and immunisations against their actual profile instead of a whole nother filing system somewhere. So, when a child's immunisation, because we obviously deal with young children, they go out of date quite quickly. That when they go out of date, we get a reminder and then it just pops up and, we get the new one in from the parents when their immunisations are updated, but it's all stored against that child's profile rather than, sitting in a paper folder that someone might get to at some point during the year when things aren't busy. So it's really quite handy.
Yeah, so it's really, if I hear you right, it's really helped you streamline the admin processes, and obviously, as you were saying before, the teachers love it because it's been simple and easy here. And in terms of data visibility, is there anything that you would comment about there? I mean, obviously you've been working off your spreadsheets. Has it helped with that data visibility that, everyone can see based on permissions? Clearly, they don't get everything, but from your perspective as a principal, because your remit is huge, even though you're a small school, you've still got all those jobs that you've got to do.
Yep.
Are there any reflections about the visibility of data with this as you've made that transition to Zunia?
Look, it's made my life a lot easier because it's certainly all in one place. So I obviously have global access to pretty much everything on Zunia.
Yes.
which has made, well, it's one location for me. Before I used to have to go to 4 or 5 different places to get, information about one student, whether it be their student report versus their parents' information versus information that I'd need for NCCD collection, for example. It's all just in one location. And what I found is that by the staff, they are obviously under certain permissions, but they update all the information regarding our awards and commendations and things like that. So if any given point in time during the week, I can sit down and go, oh, I wonder how little X person is going, sit down, figure out, what have they been doing from an educational standpoint, how they're fitting in at the school, what sort of learning structures they've been doing. It's all in the one spot. So I often don't need to leave my desk to find out the information that I would have had to have gone and spoken to the teacher, then spoken to the student, then spoken, to someone else who might house the document for enrolment forms, to then someone else. So it means that I can just pull up data really quickly to add into things like the census and to writing grants and getting reports sorted for the end of academic years, even our, I suppose, assembly certificates and those sorts of things. That data is just there rather than running around after everyone to find it. So, and I know we're a very small school, so for a bigger school, super helpful. But even our small school, like a lot of our children go off-site quite regularly, so the teachers are out and about in the community. So tracking them down can sometimes be quite difficult.
Absolutely. That's
huge.
If
they're off down in the shops buying, food for cooking or things like that. So being able to have access to that. And it also means that it follows them. So if they're out and about on one of the off-site excursions, something goes wrong, all the data is right then and there that they can log into.
They've really got Zunia on the phone or their iPad. If they've got that, it's there and it's seamless. That's great.
Yeah.
What about the wellbeing side? Your teachers are obviously dropping that information in through that quick access panel. How have they found that? Do you find that they're dropping the notes in, that you're getting these regular updates, that you can, you were talking about you being able to find the information, but from a teacher's perspective, that wellbeing side is obviously really critical too.
Yeah, it's critical for us being a small school because we rely a lot on those behavioural observations and that wellbeing side for students, because we look at the holistic child a lot more than perhaps other schools do. And we have quite a few students here on individualised education plans. So those ongoing observations on a regular basis, being able to type it or being able to voice record it and upload it is super beneficial for busy staff. So they just do it then and there, and then they upload rather than writing a note down, putting that piece of paper down that then might turn into someone's artwork, which, then goes home. And then you think, I'm sure I wrote that note at some point. But they don't know where it is. Whereas, typing's a lot quicker, or voice recording. A lot of our staff have taken to using voice recordings and then just uploading the memo, which is great. So we've found it, the more tech-savvy side of staff have, really embraced the change, and the less tech-savvy are learning as they go, which is wonderful, and they're not put off by it because, our more tech-savvy staff are like, hey, you can do this and make your life even easier. And they're like, yes, please. So from our perspective, from our wellbeing side of things, it's shortening the amount of paperwork that our staff need to do because we've made it very quick to be able to write observations and the categories that we've set up, so we often don't have to write out words. It's just a quick tick and flick box and write a short blurb as to, if it perhaps is an accident or an incident that's occurred, they can spell it out as long as they want to, or they can make it really quite short and succinct if, little child X has fallen over and grazed their knee or anything like that we sort of record, or has a slight head injury or things like that. It's just very simple. And we like the fact that it flags all our children with additional needs and anaphylaxis and those sorts of things as the forefront, and also all the birthdays. So that, those sorts of things are huge for a child's well-being. that it's just on the front page. It reminds you every time you sort of open up your document that it's person Y's birthday, and you can celebrate that and those things. So it's helped, I think, the wellbeing of our staff, because it's less paperwork than they had to do with the old physical handwriting, store that someone remember to write it down in the first place and then remember to store it, whereas they can do this on the go. They don't have to wait till the end of the day, because they're pretty quick at being able to do a quick voice memo and upload it, and then the data's just there. So what we sort of introduced is not double handling of data. So yes. Ability to just type straight in or voice record straight in. So it's not you voice record and then you take notes and then you upload the notes to a location and then you retype it. It's like if you've written a piece, take a snapshot, upload it, it's there, which has helped a lot of them. So I think they've, and then we're able to monitor, certain students as to how they're going, and keeping a check on them, and to make sure that their wellbeing needs are being met. And and when parents ring, because they're little people, and their parents are super excited and involved with them being such a young age, that when they ring throughout the day, I've got the data there, so I don't need to go and bother the teacher to find out how they're going, because the teachers have been really active, knowing that if a child's got separation anxiety and mum left and they were screaming, they pop a quick note in Zunia, so that when someone rings through at the office, we can just go, yep, they've settled in well, they're having a great day, they've engaged in this. And, so those sorts of things go a long way for a small school to maintain those relationships with families. And I think the parents, and the parents like being able to get that quick check-in, as opposed to going, oh, hang on a minute, I'll put you on hold and I need to go and find the teacher.
I'll find out.
Yeah, I'll find back, and 10 minutes later, you finally get back to them. Whereas, it's a quick, 30-second, open the device, find the child, respond back appropriately. So
that's really good. So in terms then, like I'm assuming you're using like the health and medical part too. And have you the medical inventory that tracks all of the the EpiPens and the puffers and have you experienced watching that panel, and I'm assuming as the principal you've also got a significant role here in tracking that all the medications up to date and stuff like that?
Yeah, thankfully this year we're quite lucky that we've only got one child that we have to worry about that for.
Wow. That's good.
Yeah, it's quite unusual, because normally we have quite a few, but having that information there, like, EpiPens sort of expire at random times.
I know.
Throughout the year. So it's really like, it just sits there flagged. So it's really lovely that it's in your face all the time. Because we're very lucky being a small school that we know those students very well anyway, but it's nice to be reminded that we need to keep an eye on their medications and where their expiry dates are. So yes, we certainly use the medical side of things and tracking that. We also track things like how many times they fall over, because in little kids that can sometimes be a hearing loss problem or a glue ear problem. So we sort of look for trends in accidents and for our little people that may not necessarily show up over a period of time if we're not keeping an eye on where they're at. And then there's different conversations. So we can put together a whole picture, rather than it being, previously we used to have an incident report book where you'd put all that information in, and the teachers were great at doing that. But then when we talked to our inclusive education consultant, she wouldn't have access to that. So, whereas they might bring up, little Johnny isn't hearing very well at the moment. And it's like, well, we could, with it all together now, we check through their medical stuff and we can go, you can clearly see he's been walking into a door frame, consistently for the last 2 months. So let's get his ears checked and make sure he doesn't have something bigger going on or something like that. So we've found it all being in one place so much more beneficial to, see the bigger picture of the child rather than just being quite insular in, the certain different areas.
And in terms of the whole onboarding process for you, how was that as a school? I know you might touch base on this. I'm just throwing in a random question to you.
It's okay. Carolyn was amazing. So she was our main support person in WA, and assisted us with the data migration. So once we we went through a series of training seminars and worked our way through those processes. And to be honest, my offsider, who's since left, did most of the onboarding stuff, but we sat down and we found it very easy to follow through. So each child, we knew exactly what to input and where to input it. Like some of the other products that we looked at was like, well, you had to do this bit here and this bit over there and this bit over here and this bit over there to eventually come together. Whereas with found Zunia, we could just sit down with one child with all of their data and input it in a logical fashion based on our enrolment form. So it took a little bit of time, but we only had 35 students. So for us, it didn't really take all that long, a couple of days, and we were kind of up and running from that sort of onboarding the student data across. But learning everything else has been really beneficial. We find the help desk and the help videos that are there, they answer most of our questions if we forget, because we obviously don't add students on a regular basis. So when we do, we sort of have to go back and give ourselves a refresher. But we've always found the team super helpful with being able to answer questions for us if we get stuck. And it's kind of like the no question is too stupid to ask. Even if you've asked it 400 times before. So,
I know.
Which is really lovely, you know, from a small school perspective where we're part-time and there's so many other things that we do as well as this. It's really nice to have a support team that doesn't think you're a bunch of idiots for asking the same question over and over again.
I must admit, I'm in uni all the time and I still go and click on that question mark and ask the knowledge-based question, and it comes up and I go, oh, yeah, I can't remember. That's right. You just go, yeah. But it's, I mean, it's great to hear that your teachers have found it so super simple and easy to use and yourself. I suppose from an Australian context, compliance, have you been able to run any compliance reports yet?
No, we're our first year with Zunia, so we're about to hit our first lot of census next week.
Cool.
So we're looking forward to having the data just drop in our laps. For us, previously it was quite time consuming to collate that data across the different spreadsheets. So we are scheduled for a bit of a how to find that report, and then we'll, get that data sort of sorted, which will be really lovely, but we've already got that sort of scheduled in. So and we'll look at that early next week as to being able to pull down the data. But all the other reports that we've run to this point have all sort of been quite seamless. So, we're actually looking forward to not having to spend 2 days. And, everyone sort of laughs that it's only 35 students, but it's still, you have to manipulate that data for federal government and state governments for their compliance reporting. So, we're looking forward to having less manipulation of data.
I certainly understand what you mean there, and I've just opened up Zunia. Are you using the classes function in Zunia yet for the marks?
Yeah, we do. So we've got our classes set up, and we use the attendance module as well. So, but we haven't started Marks Book because Marks Book's only just new. They haven't quite launched it to us yet. They didn't want to roll out and completely swamp us. But we have done the academic reporting module.
Yep. So that's here.
Yep. And we did that last semester, and that worked in quite lovely, actually. The teachers found it really simple because we used to do our academic reporting via a Word document that we used to fill in each individual child. And so there, as a Word template, if you're tech savvy, you can usually stick within it, but most teachers aren't tech savvy or have the time to play around with formatting. So there would be a lot of time wasted in the office trying to reformat stuff from different people and different devices. So last semester we found that really, really easy and quite quick in regard.
That's actually that's great to hear because, from a leader's perspective, as I'm just showing on the screen, you can track where every teacher's at with every child, with every report, with this little breadcrumb, colour coding. And from your perspective, just talking about compliance, there's this, and I'm assuming you've done this, this would be my one helpful hint for you, is that you need to make sure you've mapped these. So you've got the way you have set Zunia up. The Education Horizons team have gone and they've looked at all of the different compliance reports across Australia, and what they've said was a lot of the values are exactly the same. So rather than create them from everyone, you map your values. So you just say senior kindy is primary, only takes a few minutes. And then what you then can do is come to WA down here on the list, and you can then run that report here, and you can view where the data is coming from. Now, obviously, ours is a demonstration system, so we haven't done all of that mapping, but it tells you, and the thing I love about it, it tells you when you've got issues with your data, and you can go back and it gives you the kids, right? So it actually gives you all of that key information there. And probably, I'm just conscious of time, there's a couple of other things I would obviously mention to you, because I know we've got a couple of people online. So as you've said, Tanya, Zunia is native cloud, it's got fabulous security, student information sits at the core, and it's really simple and easy to actually use. And I just wanted to, while I've got you on the line, point out a few things that are coming. There is this school app that will be available from October. Students, there's one app that different users will log into. Teachers is coming in 2024, and it's going to let your parents receive notifications, update consent, submit absence, which parents love, etc. You've got the two-way messaging, so there's a lot of function that's going to be there. So that's coming in October. They're adding to the wellbeing area, so they're going deeper and making it even better and more fabulous. The individual learning plans are coming in January. The team's working on those now, which is great. So that's coming. Are you using the finance part of Zunia? I forgot to ask you this.
We aren't as yet, but we are looking to going forward. It's just we sort of started Zunia not at the beginning of the year. So we had already sent out. So it's more about just rolling out things on a slow, like at our speed, I suppose, rather than super speed land where some of the bigger schools might want it instantaneously. And Zunia have been great with sort of working with us at our slow pace.
That's fantastic. Well, it really will. I don't know what finance system you're using. It works with any finance system, but there's going to be a direct integration with Xero and Miro by the end of the year. And that relational database that you put all that amazing data into sits at the heart of it. So you can manage all of your payments, billing cycles, the complex family payments, all of that can be just done seamlessly from Zunia. So that might also be something of interest, perhaps next year as you move forward with it. And really that's really what's coming. And you're using academic reports. I just quickly showed you that Marks book area. So that's really simple and easy to use. So really, all that's left for me to do is to say thank you, Tanya. It's been fabulous having this opportunity to actually talk to you directly. I've heard a lot about Hensman, but actually reading your story and really to hear how Zunia has helped your school in terms of all the administration and those real key pain points that brought you out and looking for a new system. So I really do thank you for your time today in the case study. If anyone online would like to have a chat with any of our team, then please just scan the QR code to organise a booking, and the recording from today's webinar and the link to Hensman Elementary School's case study will be sent out to you tomorrow, so you can also read in more detail much of what Tanya has spoken about today. So Tanya, huge thank you very much for today, and we hope the rest of your day goes well. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kim.